My coworker told me someone had been sitting in my parked car every night. But I live alone, so I checked the footage. I want to start from the beginning, because if I just jump to what I found, you won't believe it. I wouldn't have believed it either. Thank you for being here with me. Before I continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Leave a quick comment and share your city or country. Stories like this invite us to reflect on trust, on the people we let closest, and on the invisible lives others are living right under our noses. Some elements have been adapted for storytelling purposes, but the questions behind them are real and worth sitting with. Thursday evening, 6:15 p.m. I was locking up the photography studio when my coworker Diane stopped me in the parking lot. She was pulling on her coat, her keys jingling in one hand, and when she saw me, she slowed down. Her face had that look. The one people get when they have something uncomfortable to say and aren't sure how to start. She said my name first. Just my name. Then a pause. James, she said. I don't want to make it weird, but I've been seeing someone sitting in your car at night, after you leave, like just sitting there in the dark. I stared at her. What? She nodded. Twice this week. I worked late Tuesday and Wednesday, left around 9. Your car was still in the lot, but you'd already gone. And both nights when I walked past, someone was in the driver's seat, just sitting, not doing anything. Just sitting in the dark. I felt something shift in my chest. Could have been a parking lot shadow, I said, James. Her voice was gentle but firm. I walked right past, close enough to knock on the glass. It was a person. A woman, I think, based on the silhouette. She was just sitting there with her hands in her lap, completely still. I forced a laugh. Maybe she was on the phone. James, the lights were off. The car was locked when I tried the door both nights, and I saw her again last night. Same thing. I didn't say anything, because I figured maybe you knew, maybe a friend. But the way she was sitting, it was strange. It felt wrong. I thanked her, told her I'd look into it, walked to my car, sat down inside it, and stared at the steering wheel for a long moment. My car. Someone sitting in my car at night after I leave. The car that is always locked. The car that only I have a key to. I drove home and barely tasted dinner. Friday morning, 7 a.m. My phone rang while I was still half asleep. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I thought about what Diane had said and answered. Silence on the other end. Then a sound I couldn't place. A breath maybe. Or static. Hello, I said. More silence. Then the call ended. I sat up in bed, heart thumping harder than it should have been. I told myself it was nothing. A wrong number. A robocall with a bad connection. I told myself a lot of things that morning. By noon, I'd mostly convinced myself. Then I found the marks on my steering wheel. They weren't deep. Just faint scratches around the base of the column, near the ignition. Like something had been inserted and removed, over and over. Like someone had been practicing. I pulled out my phone and searched. How to make a copy of a car key. The first result told me all you need is a key impression kit and 30 seconds with the original. I closed the search, sat in my car in the parking garage under the studio, and made a decision. That night I bought 3 small cameras. Magnetic mount, motion activated, night vision, cloud storage. One for the studio parking lot aimed at my car. One for the hallway outside my apartment. One for the interior of my car itself, mounted low behind the rearview mirror, nearly invisible. I synced them to my phone, set them to alert me on motion, and waited. The alert started at 11:47 p.m., parking lot camera. Movement near my car. I sat up in bed, pulled up my phone, opened the live feed. There she was. She walked slowly across the parking lot, like she belonged there. Average height, dark coat, hair pulled back. She went directly to the driver's side door, not wandering, not searching, directly to it. Like she'd done it before. She put a key in the door. It opened. She sat down inside, and then she just sat there. Exactly like Diane had described. Hands in her lap, no phone, no movement. Just sitting in the dark interior of my locked car like it was the most natural thing in the world. I almost called the police right then. Almost. But something stopped me. Something about the way she sat. There was no urgency in her body. No fear. She wasn't stealing anything. She wasn't looking for anything. She was just there, like she needed to be there. I watched the feed for 40 minutes. She didn't move. At 12:31 a.m., she got out, locked the door behind her, and walked back across the parking lot at the same calm pace. I zoomed in as she passed under the lamp near the exit. I didn't recognize her, but something about her face was familiar in a way I couldn't explain. Like a word you know but can't quite recall. Like a face from a dream. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Saturday morning, I pulled the camera footage and watched it again on my laptop, frame by frame. She was maybe mid-30s, sharp features, dark eyes. She walked with her chin slightly down, like she was used to going unnoticed. When she reached my car and unlocked it, she didn't hesitate. There was no fumbling with the key, no checking over her shoulder. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she'd been doing it long enough that it felt routine to her. I zoomed in on the key in her hand. It was identical to mine. My chest went cold. Someone had made a copy of my car key, and this woman had it. I called my brother Daniel. He picked up on the third ring, groggy, coffee sounds in the background. I told him what I'd found. He was quiet for a moment. Then, have you changed your locks recently? No. Did you ever loan your car to anyone? I thought about it. Not in months. Have you had any work done on it? Left it somewhere overnight? I sat up straight. I'd had the transmission looked at 6 weeks ago, small shop about 20 minutes from my apartment. I'd left it overnight and picked it up the next morning. The mechanic was a guy my ex-girlfriend had recommended. Someone she said she trusted. Daniel said it before I could. What's her name, James? Her name was Renata. I hadn't spoken to Renata in 8 months. We'd been together for 2 years, and when it ended it hadn't been clean. She'd wanted to keep the apartment we'd shared. I'd bought out her share of the lease instead of the other way around, and she'd been furious. Not crying furious. Cold furious. The kind of furious that doesn't show on the surface. The kind that waits. I told Daniel I'd handle it. He told me to call the police. I said I needed more first. I needed to understand why. That night I did something I hadn't done since we broke up. I drove past Renata's apartment building, not to confront her, just to look. Her car was in the lot, her lights were on. 3rd floor, corner unit. Same apartment she'd moved into after we split. I sat in my car for 2 minutes, then drove home. Sunday morning, I called the transmission shop. The owner answered. I asked about the overnight visit 6 weeks ago. Asked if anything had been flagged with my key during the service. He said no. I asked if Renata had been at the shop recently. A pause on the other end. He said he didn't think he could say. I said I understand. Then I said, the key was copied. I'm going to the police. If your shop was used for that, you'd want to know. A longer pause. Then she came in 3 days before your car did. Said she was a friend, that you were bringing your car in, and she needed to grab something from the glove box. I gave her the spare key to move it into the bay. She was only back there for maybe 5 minutes. I thanked him and hung up. 5 minutes. That's all she needed. I went back to the parking lot camera footage. Watched her walk to my car again. Watched her unlock it. Watched her sit down. And this time I noticed something I'd missed the first time. She wasn't just sitting. She was leaning slightly forward. Her eyes were closed, her head tilted down. Like she was resting. Like she was somewhere she felt safe. That was the part that disturbed me more than anything else. Not the copied key. Not the silent phone call. Not the fact that she'd been doing this for weeks, maybe longer. It was that she looked at peace in my car. Like it was hers. I called Daniel back. He answered immediately, like he'd been waiting. I told him everything. The mechanic, the key, the footage. He said, James, this isn't just strange. This is a pattern. This is obsession. I knew he was right. I just didn't know yet how deep it went. By Sunday afternoon, I'd pulled the cloud footage from every motion event the parking lot camera had captured since I'd installed it. Going back to the night I set it up, there were 9 incidents. 9 nights she'd come to my car. All between 11 and 1 in the morning. All lasting between 20 minutes and an hour. Always alone. Always calm. 9 nights, that meant she'd been doing this for at least 2 weeks that I knew about. Possibly longer before I installed the camera. Possibly much longer. I made a folder. Labeled it evidence. Saved every clip, organized by date and time. Then I did something that felt invasive but necessary. I called a contact I had at the county records office. A woman named Priya who I'd done some freelance photography work for. I asked her, quietly and carefully, if she could pull a civil complaint history for a name. She called me back that afternoon. James, she said, there are 3 restraining order applications in this name, all in the last 4 years, 2 from former partners, 1 from an employer. She paused. None of them were granted because the respondent was never properly served. She moves a lot. I sat with that for a long moment. She'd done this before, not just to me, to others, and no one had ever been able to stop her. That night, I didn't go home. I parked a block from the studio, facing the lot, lights off. I brought a thermos of coffee and my laptop. And I waited. She arrived at 11:52 p.m., same coat. Same pace. She unlocked my car and settled in. I watched her from a block away through a long lens camera I used for outdoor shoots, my hands steady despite everything. I photographed her face clearly for the first time. She was younger than I'd thought. Early 30s, maybe. Dark circles under her eyes. A tightness around her mouth that looked like it never fully went away. There was something exhausted about her. Something wound tight beneath the surface. She sat in my car for 34 minutes. When she left, I followed her. I stayed far enough back that she wouldn't notice. She drove a gray sedan, nothing remarkable. No bumper stickers, no personalized plates. She drove carefully, no sudden turns, no running lights. She went directly across town without any detours and pulled into the parking garage of an apartment complex I didn't recognize. I parked outside and wrote down the address. I sat there in the dark for a long time after her lights went off. I thought about calling the police that night. I had the footage. I had the copied key. I had the records Priya had pulled. I had enough for a report. Probably enough for a restraining order. But I didn't because something was still nagging at me. Something I couldn't name yet. I kept thinking about the way she'd sat in my car with her eyes closed. The way she'd looked peaceful. Like someone visiting somewhere they used to belong. Monday morning, I called Renata. She picked up after one ring, which told me she'd been expecting it. James, she said. Her voice was flat, not surprised, not nervous, just flat. I need to talk to you, I said. About what? About my car? A pause. A pause that lasted exactly 3 seconds too long. I know what you've been doing, I said. I have it on camera. Another pause. I'm coming to you, she said finally. Don't come here. Meet me somewhere public. We agreed on a coffee shop near the studio, noon. I arrived 15 minutes early and sat facing the door. I had my phone in my hand, the camera app open, set to record video the moment I pressed play. I had the folder of parking lot footage loaded and ready to show. She walked in at exactly noon. When she sat down across from me, she didn't look like someone who'd been caught. She looked like someone who'd been waiting for this conversation for a long time. She ordered nothing. She just folded her hands on the table and looked at me. James, she said. Why? I said. She didn't look away. She didn't fidget. That was when I first noticed it. The thing I should have paid attention to immediately. She wasn't afraid of me. She wasn't embarrassed. She was completely, eerily calm. I miss it, she said. Being close to something that was mine, your car, she continued after a moment. I know it's yours now. I know. But I used to drive it. You used to let me borrow it when my car was being serviced. You used to leave a coat in the back seat that smelled like your studio, like that chemical they use to clean the equipment. I could sit in there and just feel like things were the way they used to be. I stared at her. Renata, we broke up 8 months ago. She nodded, like I'd confirmed something she already knew. I'm aware of that, she said. I asked about the phone call. The silent one Friday morning. She nodded again. I wasn't ready to talk yet. I asked about the 3 restraining order applications. About the former partners. Her expression didn't change. Those were misunderstandings, she said. Renata, I said quietly. This has to stop. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something that I've been thinking about ever since. She said, you don't understand what it's like to lose a place where you felt safe. When we were together, I wasn't afraid of anything. I haven't felt that way since. And then she stood up, picked up her bag, and left. No argument, no scene. She just left. I sat there alone with my coffee going cold, trying to figure out what I'd just walked into. I called Daniel on the way home. Told him everything she'd said. He was quiet for a moment. James, he said. That's not grief. That's not missing someone. That's something else. I know. You need to report this. Tonight, I know, I said again. But I need to check something first. What? The footage from before I installed the cameras, I said. The mechanic said she copied the key 6 weeks ago. But I want to know how long she's actually been doing this. I went back to the studio and checked the building's existing security cameras. The ones the building management had installed in the parking lot 3 years ago. Standard equipment, not great resolution, but they covered the whole lot and they backed up to a server on a 28-day rolling loop. I requested the footage from the building manager that afternoon. He pulled it without asking too many questions, which I appreciated. I sat in the back office with his laptop and went through it. 6 weeks ago. There she was, pulling in after midnight. 7 weeks ago. Same. 9 weeks ago. Same. I went back further, 11 weeks ago. 4 months after we'd broken up, she'd found my car in this parking lot, and she'd been coming back ever since. 11 weeks. I sat back in the chair and looked at the ceiling. 11 weeks she'd been doing this, and I'd never known. I'd been walking out to that car every morning, driving it to shoots, eating lunch in it, listening to music on long drives home, and every few nights she'd been in it, in the dark. Sitting in the seat I sat in every day. The next morning, Tuesday, I filed a police report. The officer who took my statement was thorough. Her name was Officer Baines, mid-40s, short hair, direct manner. She looked at every clip I showed her without a word, and when I finished, she wrote for a full 2 minutes in her notepad before speaking. "This is stalking," she said. "Clear and documented. You have footage going back 11 weeks, a confirmed key duplication, a witnessed entry, and a history of similar behavior toward others. That's enough for an emergency protective order." I told her what Renata had said to me in the coffee shop, the part about feeling safe, about not being afraid anymore. Baines looked up from her notepad. Did she sound remorseful when she said those things? "No," I said. Baines wrote something else down. The emergency protective order was filed that afternoon, but before it could be served, something happened that I hadn't expected. My car interior camera sent me an alert. It was Tuesday night, 11 p.m. I was sitting at my kitchen table eating leftovers when my phone buzzed. I opened the alert. She was in my car. She'd come back. The same night I'd filed the report. The same night I'd confronted her in the coffee shop. She'd come back anyway. But this time she wasn't just sitting. She was on the phone. I couldn't hear the conversation from the car interior camera, but I could see her face clearly. She was leaning forward, one hand pressing the phone hard against her ear, the other flat on the dashboard. Her expression had changed. That eerie calm was gone. She looked desperate. Her lips were moving fast. I pressed record on my phone and called Baines. "She's in my car right now," I said. "I'm watching it live on my camera." "Stay where you are," Baines said. "We'll send a unit." While I waited, I watched the feed. Renata finished the call, sat for a moment, then pulled something from her bag, a folder. She opened it on her lap and started going through papers, documents of some kind. I couldn't see clearly, but she was reading carefully, pausing, turning pages. She wasn't in my car to feel safe. Not tonight. Tonight she was working. 2 patrol units arrived and found her in the car. She came out cooperatively, hands up, no argument. She was calm again, that quick, like she'd put the other version of herself away in an instant and become someone else. Officer Baines called me at midnight. "We have her," she said. "But James." She paused. "We found things in her bag, documents. They have your name on them. Financial documents, insurance policy paperwork, the name of a broker, and a letter, handwritten. Addressed to someone called Marcus. Who's Marcus? That's what I need to ask you. Do you know anyone named Marcus with access to your personal accounts?" My stomach dropped. "No," I said slowly. "Are you sure?" I went through my mental list. Everyone who'd ever held a key. Everyone who'd ever been in my apartment. And then something came loose in the back of my mind. Renata's brother. He'd done some work on my laptop last year. Fixed a corrupted hard drive. I'd handed the machine right to him. Left him alone with it for 2 hours. His name was Marcus. The next 48 hours moved very fast. Baines brought in a forensic accountant. She combed through 2 years of my accounts with the documents they'd pulled from Renata's bag as a guide. By Thursday evening, she called me. "James." "Sit down." I sat. "There have been 11 small transfers out of your business account over the last 7 months. Each under the reporting threshold. Each to a holding LLC registered in a name I didn't recognize. The total came to just over $43,000. I couldn't speak for a moment," she continued. "The LLC is owned by a shell company. The shell company traces back to a registered agent who listed their contact email when filing. That email was used to sign up for a gym membership. The gym membership was in Marcus Delgado's name, Renata's brother. The forensic accountant believed Marcus had installed monitoring software on my laptop during the repair. Something that captured login credentials, banking passwords, business account access. Then he'd been slowly, quietly pulling money out in amounts designed to go unnoticed. 7 months, $43,000. And Renata had known. The documents in her bag were logs. Printouts tracking the transfers. She wasn't an unknowing bystander. She'd been keeping records of what her brother was doing. Whether to protect herself or to protect him, I still didn't know. But I was about to find out. Friday afternoon, Baines brought me in to observe through the glass while she interviewed Renata. I sat in the dim room next door, watching through the one-way window. Renata was different in that environment. Smaller. The calm was still there, but thinner now, stretched over something that looked fragile underneath. Baines started simply. "Tell me about the documents in your bag." Renata looked at the table. "They're mine," she said. "Tell me what they document." Renata was quiet for a moment. Then, my brother made a mistake. Baines didn't react. She just waited. He needed money, Renata continued. He said he'd pay it back. I told him to stop. He didn't. So I started keeping records. In case I needed them. Baines slid a photo across the table. It was a screenshot of the Holding LLC documents. Did you know about this company? Long pause, yes. Did you benefit financially? No. Baines waited again. The silence in that room was thick and deliberate. Then Renata said something that changed everything. He told me James would never notice. He said James doesn't pay attention to the small things, that he was distracted and careless with his finances. She stopped. I should have turned Marcus in when he started. I know that. But he's my brother. I watched her face through the glass. She wasn't crying. She looked tired, hollowed out, like someone who'd been carrying a weight for so long she couldn't remember what it felt like to put it down. And I realized something then, watching her, the sitting in the car, the silent phone calls, the copied key. I'd been so focused on how strange it was, how unsettling, that I'd missed what it actually was. It was guilt. She'd been circling me for months, unable to go forward and unable to go back, and all that circling had looked like obsession, when really it was just someone drowning slowly in a secret. They couldn't figure out how to confess. That didn't excuse it. It didn't excuse any of it. But it changed the shape of it. Baines arrested Marcus the following morning. He was found at his apartment with 2 external hard drives and a burner laptop that held records of 7 separate victims. Not just me. James, Baines said on the phone, this wasn't the first time. He's been doing this for at least 2 years. You're the 5th case we can document. 43,000 from me. Larger amounts from others. An organized, patient, methodical theft from people who'd trusted him with their devices. And Renata had known about at least some of it. She was charged with accessory after the fact and filed a cooperation agreement the same afternoon. Her attorney negotiated reduced charges in exchange for full testimony about Marcus's operation, every name, every victim, every account. She testified for 6 hours. I didn't go to the courthouse that day. I sat in my apartment with the blinds open, drinking coffee, watching the light change. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. He always at the trial. Jury came back in 4 hours. Marcus convicted on all 9 counts. Sentencing in 60 days. I typed back. Okay. That was all I had. That night I went to the parking lot outside the studio, stood beside my car in the dark for a moment, looking at it. The same car she'd been sitting in for 11 weeks. The same seat. The same smell of that cleaning chemical she'd mentioned. I got in, started the engine. Drove. I didn't go anywhere in particular. Just drove through the city for an hour with the radio low, past the coffee shop where we'd met, past the studio, past the mechanic's shop, past the apartment complex where I'd followed her that night. Then I went home and sat at my desk. I thought about writing something down, some kind of account. Not for anyone else, just for myself. The kind of thing you need to set outside yourself and look at before you can understand what it was. What I wrote down was this. $43,000 was recoverable. Most of it came back through the restitution order. The accounts were eventually restored. The monitoring software removed, the credentials changed. What you can't recover is the feeling of safety in a place you thought was private. Knowing that for 7 months, every time I sat at my desk and logged into my accounts, someone was watching. Every password I typed, every transaction I made, every file I opened, that feeling takes longer to come back. What I know now that I didn't know before is that vulnerability doesn't always come from strangers. It comes from proximity. From the small decisions we make about who to trust and with what, decisions that feel trivial in the moment and turn out to matter enormously. I gave Marcus my laptop because Renata asked me to, because I trusted her. And I trusted her because we'd been together for 2 years, and that felt like enough. It wasn't. The other thing I know is that people in pain don't always look the way you expect. Renata sitting in my car in the dark at midnight looked like a threat, but it was also a person trying to hold on to something she'd already lost, doing it badly, doing it in a way that frightened and violated someone she'd cared about, but doing it from pain all the same. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for her. I'm not sure I do, exactly. But I understand her better now than I did when I was watching her through a long lens camera from a block away. Marcus was sentenced to 4 years. He served 2.5. I don't track what he's doing now. Renata received 2 years probation and community service. I haven't spoken to her since the trial. I don't intend to. I changed every password, every account, every login credential for every platform, financial, personal, professional. I had every device swept for monitoring software by a specialist. I had my car lock rekeyed. I changed the locks on my apartment. I also installed a real security system for the first time in my life. Not because I expected another incident, but because I'd learned something I couldn't unknow. Feeling safe and being safe are two different things, and I'd been confusing them for years. There's a camera on the parking lot now. A real one, not a magnetic mount hidden behind the mirror. It covers every angle. It alerts my phone in real time. Some nights I glance at the feed before I go to sleep, just for a moment. Not because I think someone's out there, just because now I know that not knowing is a choice, and I've stopped making it. I still drive the same car, still park in the same lot, still go to the same studio every morning. Some things you change and some things you refuse to let be changed, because the moment you abandon the ordinary things you loved before, whoever took them from you wins. My car is mine. It always was. If you're watching this or reading this account I'm leaving behind, here is what I want you to understand. Security isn't about being afraid. It's about paying attention. I ignored 11 weeks of small signs, a lock that looked slightly different, a faint scratch on the steering column, a coworker's hesitant face in a parking lot. I ignored them because confronting them meant confronting what they implied. Don't do that. When something feels wrong, the feeling is information, not paranoia, not overreaction, information. And the people closest to you are not automatically safe. Proximity is not the same as trustworthiness. People can love you or once have loved you, or want to love you, and still put you at risk. Sometimes deliberately, sometimes out of their own unaddressed wounds. Trust the pattern, not the face. Document everything. I cannot say this enough. The folder I named evidence changed the outcome of everything that happened after. Camera footage, date and timestamps, written notes with names, conversations, exact words. When you walk into a police station or a courtroom with evidence, the world listens differently than it does when you walk in with only your word. Build the record while the events are still fresh. And tell someone. Tell Daniel. Tell Diane. Tell Officer Baines. I resisted every one of those calls longer than I should have because I was embarrassed, because I told myself I was handling it, because I wanted to understand it before I let anyone else into it. That was my mistake. Darkness survives by staying private. The moment you bring it into the light, half of its power disappears. I'm older now than I was the morning. Diane stopped me by the gate with that uncomfortable look on her face. Not much older in years, but older in a way that matters. I look at my car differently. I look at my devices differently. I look at the people I let into my life and the access I give them differently. That isn't cynicism. That's just learning. The world is mostly full of people who mean well. But it only takes one person who doesn't give an access you didn't realize you'd given to remind you that attention is never wasted. Stay aware. Stay documented. Stay connected to the people who will pick up the phone when you call. I still have the folder labeled evidence on my laptop. I haven't deleted it. I probably won't. Not because I'm still afraid, but because it reminds me that when things went wrong, I paid attention. And paying attention was what saved everything. If this story reached you tonight, if it made you think about a lock you haven't changed, a device you've handed over without thinking, a person whose access to your life you've never fully examined, then it was worth telling. If you found yourself in this situation, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? Leave a comment. Your perspective matters more than you think. A note before you go. While this account is rooted in real patterns of financial fraud, digital privacy violation, and obsessive behavior that occur far more commonly than most people realize, certain elements have been adapted for the purposes of storytelling. The questions behind them, about trust, about attention, about the people we let closest, those are entirely real. Stay vigilant, stay safe. And remember, the most important camera you have is the one behind your own eyes, as long as you're willing to keep it open.